Welcome to the Daily History Chronicle. Each day, we travel back to discover a pivotal moment that changed the world. These aren't just dates and facts. They're stories of courage, conflict, innovation, and consequence that still echo through our lives today. Are you ready to explore? Let's see what happened on this day in history.
Good morning, I'm Richard Backus, publisher of University Teaching Edition. And every day I get to share a piece of history that I think you'll find as fascinating as I do. On January 5th, 1914, Henry Ford stunned the world by announcing that Ford Motor Company would more than double its workers' wages, from $2.34 to $5 a day, and reduce the workday from 9 hours to 8. Newspapers across America and Europe ran glowing headlines. The New York Times wondered what marvels other capitalists might work if they followed Ford's example. The Wall Street Journal called him a class traitor. Overnight, Ford became either a visionary genius or a dangerous radical, depending on who was talking. And here's what fascinates me about this moment. Ford's announcement was genuinely revolutionary. It created a living wage that lifted tens of thousands of families into the middle class. Workers could actually afford the Model T cars they were building. Other industries followed suit, fundamentally changing American labor. But there was a catch, a big one. To receive that $5 wage, workers had to submit to something unprecedented in American industry. Ford investigators would visit their homes unannounced, inspect their living conditions, check their bank accounts, monitor their drinking habits, and judge whether they were living properly. Understanding what happened on January 5th requires holding multiple truths. Ford's wage increase helped create the American middle class. The invasion of workers' privacy was dystopian. The economic innovation solved a real business crisis, and the surveillance system Ford created would eventually morph into something even more sinister. All four are true, all four matter. Picture this. It's late 1913 at Ford's Highland Park plant in Michigan. The moving assembly line that Ford's team perfected just months earlier is a marvel of efficiency. A Model T that once took 12 and a half hours to build now rolls off the line in 93 minutes. Production has exploded. Demand is through the roof. The company should be celebrating. Instead, it's in crisis. Workers hate the assembly line. What had been skilled craft work, building an automobile from start to finish, has become mind-numbing repetition. One worker installs the same spring on the same spot again and again, 12 times an hour, 96 times a day. Another fills radiators with water. That's it. That's his entire day, every day. The numbers tell the story. In 1913, Ford's annual labor turnover rate hit 370%. For every position in the plant, Ford had to hire nearly 4 workers, hoping one would stick around. The company went through 52,000 employees just to maintain a workforce of 14,000. Every morning, Ford needed over 1,000 extras on standby because of high absences. This wasn't a labor problem. It was a catastrophe. If they couldn't solve it, the entire mass production experiment would collapse. The moving assembly line wasn't really Ford's idea. His production chief, Charlie Sorensen, borrowed concepts from meatpacking plants. But Ford recognized its potential. By October 1913, they had refined the system. A car that cost $850 in 1908 could now be sold for $575, and the price kept dropping. But efficiency came at a human cost. Assembly line work stripped away everything that made labor satisfying. Your individuality didn't matter. Your skills didn't matter. You were interchangeable. Many workers simply walked away. The plant became a revolving door of new hires who quit within weeks. The workforce was 70% foreign-born, mainly from Eastern and Southern Europe. Many spoke little English. Communication broke down. The combination of language barriers, crushing monotony, and low wages created chaos. When Ford's managers laid out the problem, Ford saw an opportunity. Or rather, he saw two issues that could cancel each other out. His company had generated massive profits, over $10 million in 1913 alone. And he had a workforce that was literally walking away from jobs. So Ford made a calculation that was part economics, part social engineering. Raise wages dramatically, reduce hours slightly, and use the extra pay to reshape how workers lived their entire lives. The announcement on January 5, 1914, was carefully choreographed. Ford and his vice president, James Couzens, revealed the plan to the press. $5 a day, 8-hour shifts instead of 9, profit sharing with workers. It sounded almost utopian. But here's what the headlines missed. It wasn't actually a $5 wage. It was structured as a two-part payment. Workers received their base wage of about $2.70 per day. The other $2.30 came as profit sharing, but only if they qualified. And qualification meant passing inspection by Ford's newly created sociological department. The sociological department wasn't a benefits office or a counseling service. It was an investigative bureau. Ford hired dozens of investigators who would conduct unannounced visits to workers' homes. They evaluated cleanliness. They checked for signs of alcohol consumption. They looked for evidence of moral behavior. No gambling, no domestic violence, no taking in boarders to make extra money. They examined whether workers were saving regularly, contributing to bank accounts, and keeping their children in school. These weren't suggestions. They were requirements. If investigators found your home too dirty, or if you were drinking, or if your family situation was improper, you lost the profit-sharing portion of your wage. You went back to earning $2.70 a day, while the worker next to you on the line made $5. I find myself thinking about what this must have felt like. You're a Polish immigrant, maybe, or Italian. You came to America for an opportunity. You're working brutal hours on the assembly line, and now your employer is telling you that to earn a decent wage, you have to let company men into your home without warning. They'll judge how you live, what you drink, and how you raise your family. They'll check your bank account. They'll ask your neighbors about you, and most workers accepted it. Because $5 a day, even with strings attached, was life-changing money, more than double what they'd been making. With that wage, you could afford better housing, save for the future, and keep kids in school instead of sending them to work. You might even buy one of the Model T cars you were building. Ford had figured out something profound. If you pay workers enough, they'll tolerate almost anything. The sociological department went far beyond home visits. Ford required workers to attend citizenship classes and learn English. This was framed as Americanization, the process of helping immigrants integrate. But it was also cultural coercion. By 1916, investigators were visiting over 500 homes per week. They compiled statistics on workers' living conditions organized by nationality. They rated neighborhoods as good, fair, or poor. The program excluded many workers entirely. Women didn't qualify for the $5 wage. Ford's theory being that women didn't need high wages because they weren't family breadwinners. Young single men were excluded because Ford believed they'd waste money on frivolous pursuits. Initially, most black workers couldn't participate either. Though Ford would eventually hire more African Americans than most manufacturers of his era, Well, what troubles me most is the slippage between genuine welfare and authoritarian control. Some of what the sociological department did was genuinely helpful. They provided financial advice, helped workers navigate legal issues, and taught basic hygiene and budgeting. Ford wasn't wrong that workers with stable home lives and economic security were more productive and less likely to quit. The turnover rate plummeted from 370% in 1913 to 1.4% by 1915. But helpful and coercive aren't opposites. They can be the same thing. Ford genuinely believed, that he was improving workers' lives. And in many ways he was. Workers bought homes, sent kids to college, and built savings. They moved from subsistence living to middle-class comfort. That transformation was genuine. But he was also destroying any boundary between employer and employee, between work life and private life. He was saying, in effect, I'll pay you well, but in exchange, I own all of you. Not just your labor, but your habits, your choices, your family life, your future. We're still living with the consequences of Ford's experiment. The $5 day forced other manufacturers to raise wages. Within a few years, different industries followed suit. The concept of a living wage, pay that provides not just survival, but comfort and security, entered American consciousness. Ford had proven that paying workers well could be profitable. When workers could afford to buy products, consumer demand increased, creating a virtuous cycle. This was the foundation of the mid-20th century American economy. But Ford's surveillance state didn't disappear. It evolved. By 1921, the sociological department had become too expensive to maintain, and Ford dissolved it. What replaced it was worse. He created the service department, essentially a private police force. Instead of investigators checking your home, you had factory spies reporting on your conversations. Instead of moral guidance, you had thugs intimidating anyone who talked about unions. When workers at Ford's River Rouge plant marched for better conditions in 1932, Ford's security forces opened fire. 4 workers died. The line from the benevolent sociological department to armed strikebreakers is shorter than we'd like to admit. Today, we face the same questions Ford's workers faced. Amazon tracks warehouse workers' every movement. Gig economy companies use algorithms to control when workers can earn money. Corporate wellness programs offer incentives if you wear fitness trackers, which means your employer knows your sleep patterns, your biometric data. Companies monitor employees' computer use, email, and even keystrokes. We call it productivity enhancement or workplace wellness. Ford called it moral guidance. The mechanism is the same. Employers using economic leverage to control not just what workers do on the job, but how they live their entire lives. The question hasn't changed in over a century. What are we willing to trade for economic security? What parts of our lives should employers control? And where should the boundary be? When does helping become coercing? I keep returning to this uncomfortable reality. Henry Ford wasn't a villain twirling a mustache. He genuinely believed he was helping his workers. And in measurable ways, he was. Thousands of families escaped poverty because of the $5 a day program. Ford workers bought homes, educated children, built savings, opportunities that would have been impossible on $2.34 a day. But Ford also believed he had the right to dictate how workers should live. He believed that because he paid well, he could demand total compliance, not just at work, but at home. He thought he knew better than his workers what was good for them. And when workers pushed back, when they tried to organize unions or demand rights rather than accept paternalistic guidance, Ford responded with surveillance and violence. Both things are true. Ford's innovation created genuine prosperity for millions of workers, and the precedent he set that employers can monitor and control workers' private lives in exchange for decent wages haunts us today. The other truth is this: workers accepted Ford's deal because they had no choice. When you're making $2.34 a day and can barely feed your family, and someone offers you $5 a day with strings attached, you take it. The alternative isn't freedom, it's poverty. Ford understood that, and he used it. What's the difference between offering a better life with conditions attached and coercion? Sometimes there isn't one. I'm Richard Backus, and this is the Daily History Chronicle. Tomorrow, we'll explore another moment that shaped our world. Until then, think about this. When your employer monitors your productivity software or your health tracker, or offers you bonuses for hitting wellness goals, are they helping you or controlling you? Can those things be separated? And if Henry Ford's workers traded privacy for security to survive, what does that say about the choices workers make today? Because that's what the $5 a day teaches us. Not just about fair wages, but about how economic power shapes what freedom really means. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, then please tell a friend. I hope you will join me again tomorrow for more of our shared history.